Grief does not always arrive as tears. Sometimes it enters a workplace wearing a quiet face, studies every door, and waits for the guilty to reveal themselves. Wrath of Man turns hidden grief into a cold revenge thriller while operating as a carefully engineered product built from star power, mystery, digital technology, and financial discipline. Released in 2021, the story follows a mysterious man called H, who joins an armored truck company in Los Angeles. He appears barely capable enough to pass his firearms test, but when robbers attack, his extraordinary accuracy exposes a far more dangerous identity beneath the uniform. Directed by Guy Ritchie and led by Jason Statham, the film reunites two creators whose early collaborations shaped modern British crime cinema. This time the humor is reduced, the colors are colder, and the emotional engine is controlled rage rather than clever criminal comedy. The reported production budget was approximately $40 million, a meaningful risk during a theatrical market still recovering from the pandemic. The investment depended on a recognizable star, a recognizable director, and a genre promise audiences could understand immediately. Instead of explaining H at the beginning, the screenplay turns him into a question. The audience invests attention before receiving information. Mystery becomes narrative capital, and every delayed answer increases the value of the final revelation. The project also adapts the 2004 French thriller Cash Truck, using an established premise as creative R&D while reshaping its tone for Ritchie and Statham. Grief does not always arrive as tears. Sometimes it enters a workplace wearing a quiet face, studies every door, and waits for the guilty to reveal themselves. Wrath of Man turns hidden grief into a cold revenge thriller while operating as a carefully engineered product built from star power, mystery, digital technology, and financial discipline. Released in 2021, the story follows a mysterious man called H, who joins an armored truck company in Los Angeles. He appears barely capable enough to pass his firearms test, but when robbers attack, his extraordinary accuracy exposes a far more dangerous identity beneath the uniform. Directed by Guy Ritchie and led by Jason Statham, the film reunites two creators whose early collaborations shaped modern British crime cinema. This time the humor is reduced, the colors are colder, and the emotional engine is controlled rage rather than clever criminal comedy. The reported production budget was approximately $40 million, a meaningful risk during a theatrical market still recovering from the pandemic. The investment depended on a recognizable star, a recognizable director, and a genre promise audiences could understand immediately. Instead of explaining H at the beginning, the screenplay turns him into a question. The audience invests attention before receiving information. Mystery becomes narrative capital, and every delayed answer increases the value of the final revelation. The project also adapts the 2004 French thriller Cash Truck, using an established premise as creative R&D while reshaping its tone for Ritchie and Statham. The second half returns to the opening robbery and reveals H as Patrick Hill, a powerful criminal operator who had been watching the target with his son, Dougie. A simple father and son moment becomes catastrophic when another crew attacks the truck and kills the innocent young man. H survives, but survival does not restore him. He interrogates rival crews and uses violence as information gathering. His organization has money, weapons, and personnel, yet none of those assets can immediately identify the killer. Even powerful networks become inefficient when the necessary data does not exist. The narrative then follows former soldiers led by Jackson. They are skilled, disciplined, and financially frustrated. After smaller robberies, they plan to attack Fortico on Black Friday, when the depot holds an exceptional volume of cash. Their operation resembles a hostile acquisition: gain internal access, neutralize security, seize the core asset, and exit quickly. Bullet is exposed as the insider. He forces H to cooperate, unaware that H has been waiting for this connection. The assault becomes a collision between two strategies: the veteran's plan to steal the money and H's plan to identify his son's killer. The robbery collapses through resistance and betrayal. Jan kills his partners, takes the money and escapes, but H follows a hidden tracking phone to his apartment. He repeats the wounds listed in Dougie's medical report, then leaves the cash behind. Profit was never the objective. Punishment was the only return he wanted. The nonlinear structure now delivers its full payoff. Events that once seemed disconnected become parts of one machine, rewarding viewers for remembering details rather than merely waiting for gunfire. H's psychology is built around complicated grief. He cannot reverse his son's death, so he converts helplessness into measurable tasks: find the crew, identify the shooter, deliver punishment. This structure gives him purpose, but purpose is not the same as healing. His emotional restraint is over control rather than emptiness. Trauma can narrow attention, reduce social engagement and create a need to manage uncertainty. H speaks little because conversation does not move him toward the target. Every interaction is measured by usefulness. He also carries guilt. H brought Dougie near a criminal surveillance operation and asked him to observe the truck. Although he did not cause the attack, his mind can connect his decision to the death. Revenge targets Jan, but it may also function as punishment directed inward. Jackson's crew represents another pathway. Former soldiers miss military structure, status, and belonging. Their civilian lives feel financially and emotionally smaller, so group loyalty gradually normalizes crime. Each man sees competent friends approving the same decision. Sunk cost bias keeps them moving toward the final robbery. After investing time, weapons, and identity, stopping would mean admitting that the entire project is destructive. Jan finally reveals the weakness inside the group. Loyalty matters to him only while it increases survival. The film's behavioral lesson is dark. Grief can make revenge feel rational, and belonging can make dangerous choices feel normal. Immediate emotional rewards overpower distant consequences. Money, revenge, and group approval feel present, while prison, death, and moral injury remain abstract until the plan is already collapsing. The financial autopsy begins with a reported production budget of approximately $40 million. That amount supports stars, vehicles, weapons, locations, and complex action while remaining far below modern superhero costs. The film occupies the valuable mid-budget space, where risk is controlled through genre clarity and recognizable talent. Worldwide theatrical revenue reached approximately $104 million. About $27.5 million came from the United States and Canada, while roughly $76.5 million came internationally. More than 70% of ticket revenue therefore arrived outside the domestic market. The gross was around 2.6 times the reported budget, but that is not pure ROI. Cinemas retain part of ticket sales, while distributors recover marketing, interest, overhead, and release expenses. A film can gross more than twice its production cost without producing the same amount of studio profit. Context improves the result. The release occurred while cinema attendance was rebuilding after pandemic closures. Opening at number 1 and passing 100 million worldwide demonstrated demand for adult action that did not rely on superheroes or a giant franchise universe. International performance reduced dependence on one territory. Statham's global identity, Rich's reputation, and a visually direct story made the product easy to export. Home entertainment, rentals, television, and streaming created later revenue. From an EBITDA perspective, theatrical release generated visibility while the longer licensing life cycle increased total asset value. The lesson is not that every $40 million thriller succeeds. It is that disciplined cost, familiar talent, and a clear emotional promise can compete against much larger intellectual properties. The result should still be described as commercially solid rather than guaranteed profit. The missing marketing and participation figures prevent an honest calculation of net studio earnings. The filmmaking technology is modern, but the visual philosophy is severe. Cinematographer Alan Stewart used Sony Venice digital cinema technology, while Panavision Primo Artiste lenses supported a large-format image with controlled sharpness and subtle texture. The camera system offered strong dynamic range and low-light performance, useful for black vehicles, dark warehouses, nighttime streets, and interiors illuminated by practical fixtures. Digital capture also allowed the crew to review exposure and color information rapidly during a complicated schedule. Live grading and organized data management helped the cinematographer preview intended contrast and color on set. Fast visual feedback protects art and finance because mismatched footage can be corrected before sets, actors, or vehicles become unavailable. Action technology extended beyond cameras. Armored trucks needed interior rigs, exterior mounts, and repeatable stunt movement. Weapon effects combined performer timing, practical impacts, and digital cleanup. Visual effects removed safety equipment, extended environments, and joined physical elements without turning the production into a fantasy spectacle. Editing provides another innovation. The same robbery is shown from different viewpoints and time periods, but every repetition adds information. Technology makes the structure manageable, storytelling gives it purpose. The greatest technical achievement is integration. Camera, color, vehicles, stunts, effects, sound, and nonlinear editing all create one controlled feeling. Violence is approaching long before it becomes visible. Large format capture also allows careful reframing and visual effects work, giving post-production flexibility while preserving the heavy, composed appearance of the original photography. Production management connected two geographic realities. Photography took place in Los Angeles and London, with British facilities providing controlled interiors while American locations supplied industrial roads, rail lines, and the physical identity of the city. This arrangement balances cost and control. A secure workplace set allows predictable lighting, sound, and stunt access, while exterior photography provides authenticity. The audience experiences one continuous world even though the schedule is divided across countries. The Fortico depot is a major logistical system. Trucks enter on precise marks, extras move around heavy vehicles, and weapons, glass effects, smoke, lighting, and cameras must remain synchronized. One delayed department can prevent every other department from completing its work. The final robbery required extensive coverage because several characters act in different parts of the building simultaneously. Additional cameras and units increase cost but reduce editorial risk. Without enough angles, expensive action becomes geographically confusing. Scheduling Statham carries special financial importance because the star is a central asset for financing and marketing. His physical ability improves authenticity, but demanding setups must still protect his availability for the rest of production. Ritchie's roles as director, writer, and producer can shorten decision chains, while experienced department heads convert creative changes into practical plans. The screen appears controlled because hundreds of people manage time, transport, safety, payroll, and equipment with far more cooperation than any character in the story. The film is not a documentary about armored transport, but it uses enough procedure to make the world credible. Cash and transit companies depend on secure depots, controlled routes, radio communication, tracking, and strict access rules. The story creates suspense by showing how these protections can be defeated from inside. The insider threat is especially realistic as a security principle. Locks and reinforced vehicles protect against strangers, but employees possess schedules, habits, and trusted access. Organizations therefore separate duties and limit how much information one person controls. Bullet's value comes from connecting several protected systems. The Black Friday target is dramatized, but its logic is believable. Increased retail activity creates more cash movement, changing routes, staffing, and operational pressure. Criminal planning often targets moments when volume strains normal procedures. The gunfights are less realistic. HS accuracy, survival, and ability to function after serious wounds belong to action cinema. Ballistic damage is simplified so that objectives remain readable. The veteran crew also requires caution. Most former soldiers do not become criminals, and financial frustration alone does not explain violence. The strongest realism is systemic. Security is a network of people, procedures, and information. The heist becomes possible only when trust fails at several points at once. Real operators also rely on route variation, check-in procedures, and emergency escalation, details the film compresses so the human betrayals remain the central threat. Alan Stewart photographs Los Angeles as an industrial landscape rather than a glamorous city. Concrete channels, rail corridors, warehouses, and loading yards create an environment designed for movement but emotionally empty. The city feels efficient, expensive, and indifferent. The palette is dominated by charcoal, steel blue, dusty brown, and controlled amber. These colors suppress warmth and reflect HS' emotional condition. Brighter light exposes surfaces without making the world safer. Large-format digital photography gives faces and spaces strong presence, while the lenses separate characters from backgrounds without creating a polished advertising look. H is often framed as a solid shape inside rigid architecture, suggesting that his body has become another weaponized object. The opening robbery restricts the camera to the truck. Later versions expand the perspective. Each return increases understanding without changing the outcome, allowing visual information to compound over time. Composition communicates hierarchy at Fortico. Workers gather in crowded rooms and compete for status, while H remains visually isolated. During the final assault, overhead views, corridors, and vehicle lines maintain geography. Darkness creates pressure, but doors, cages, and loading areas stay identifiable. Clear spatial design increases the return on every stunt. The camera does not celebrate violence. It observes it with the same cold patience as the central character. Christopher Benstead's score is the emotional bloodstream. Deep strings, low brass, percussion, and repeating pulses create the feeling of a machine carrying grief forward. The music rarely offers relief because H has not allowed relief into his life. Its central idea behaves like an unresolved demand, repeating with small variations and building pressure instead of delivering a traditional heroic melody. This gives psychological weight to a simple revenge plot. Sound design makes armored transport physically dangerous. Heavy doors lock with metallic force, engines vibrate beneath dialogue, and gunfire becomes painful inside enclosed spaces. The truck is both protection and trap. During the opening robbery, sound supplies information the camera withholds. Voices, movement, and sudden impacts allow the audience to construct an incomplete mental image. Imagination expands the scale beyond what is shown. H's quiet voice must remain clear without weakening weapons and vehicles. Other characters fill silence with jokes. He makes silence uncomfortable. In the final assault, radio calls, alarms, automatic fire and score compete, but the mix guides attention toward changing objectives. This is sound ROI. Every effect increases tension, clarifies location, or reveals control. Ben Stead and the effects team make the audience feel approaching violence before the screenplay confirms it. The marketing campaign sold the reunion before the details. Statham and Ritchie had not made a film together for roughly 15 years, giving the project nostalgia and freshness. Viewers familiar with their earlier crime films could expect recognizable chemistry in a darker form. Posters and trailers centered Statham's face, bruised hands, armored trucks, and precise gunfire. This was efficient positioning because genre, star, and emotional temperature were communicated within seconds. The product promised seriousness rather than comedy. The title strengthened that promise by describing an emotional state instead of a complicated heist. Anger is internationally understandable, allowing the marketing to travel across languages with limited explanation. The United States release opened at #1 with approximately $8 million during a weakened market. Audience data showed a strong male share and a majority over 25, proving the campaign reached mature action viewers rather than a broad family audience. International markets delivered most revenue, including a meaningful Chinese release. The campaign benefited from low conceptual friction. A mysterious guard has a hidden past, criminals attack cash trucks, and revenge drives the violence. Trailers could preserve the mystery while clearly selling the experience. The analytics lesson is targeted efficiency. The film did not need everyone. It needed to convert a specific audience strongly across enough territories to support a controlled budget and a long home platform lifecycle. Critical reception was mixed. Many reviewers admired the atmosphere, Statham's controlled performance, and the force of the action. Others criticized thin characters, aggressive masculinity, and a complicated timeline applied to a familiar revenge story. The division reveals the difference between novelty and execution. A grieving father hunting the person responsible for his loss is not a new plot. The film's value comes from structure, tone, and performance rather than an original destination. Audience response was stronger, and opening weekend viewers awarded an A- cinema score. That suggests the product delivered what its ticket buyers expected. Satisfaction came from consistency between the marketing promise and the final experience. The film was not a major awards contender, but prestige was never its main financial objective. Its achievement was proving that an adult action thriller could generate worldwide theatrical interest during an unstable release period. Its legacy includes the renewed Statham-Ritchie partnership, which continued into later projects. The film also developed strong streaming value. Its chaptered construction and reveal-based plot reward repeat viewing because later knowledge changes earlier scenes. It does not reinvent revenge cinema, but it offers an industrial masterclass. Control the budget, trust the star, create a distinctive mood, and make every technical department serve the same emotional temperature. Its continuing visibility on streaming platforms shows how a moderate theatrical success can become a durable catalog title when its tone and star remain instantly recognizable. The film unites art, technology, and capital through one disciplined idea. Grief has entered a system built to move money, and it will not leave until the human debt is paid. The art is a father's transformation into an instrument of punishment. The technology is the camera, color, vehicles, stunts, sound and editing that give his mission force. The capital is the $40 million investment organized around a proven global star. Financially, it demonstrates the value of international demand and mid-budget control. A worldwide gross of roughly $104 million was not a superhero-scale event, but it preserved commercial space for adult action during one of cinema's most uncertain periods. Psychologically, the story understands that revenge can feel like progress because it contains clear steps. Healing is slower and impossible to measure. H chooses the path with a target, but the final silence suggests punishment does not restore the person who began the mission. Technologically, modern tools remain invisible. Digital cameras, live grading and visual effects support trucks, faces and physical performance instead of becoming the subject. Every low musical note, dark corridor, and measured stare belongs to one emotional design. The final business lesson is alignment. When star image, genre promise, visual language, sound and marketing communicate the same experience, a familiar story can still feel valuable. The plot moves cash, but the film earns attention by moving anger with precision. If you found this deep dive meaningful, my literature-loving friends, consider liking and subscribing so we can keep decoding the business and beauty of cinema together.